If you've got an engineer that their go-to is just sticking a shitload of steel and it's all big steel and it's got loads of complicated connection details, and I don't want to work with that engineer. I want to work with an engineer that's going to turn around and say, oh, we don't need a steel for this ridge beam. We can double up a timber, or we can use a flitch plate, whatever it may be that the solution is. Working with an engineer that thinks about how lean a scheme they can create, I think is like imperative to saving money and creating an efficient scheme and an efficient design that works for your bank balance. What's the easy wins for value engineering to save costs for build on sites? So basically wins for value engineering. We've had to value engineer like significantly all of our schemes. And I think I've mentioned this before, where there have been schemes where we've had contractors come in that's sort of at the budget level that we expect or want or need. And at that point, I get a little bit relaxed. And I'm like, great, we're in budget, let's crack on. Whereas actually I could probably find an extra 10% savings by really drilling down on that contract, tender return. Whereas the projects where they come in stupidly over where we expect them to come in, I'm frantically running around trying to find savings left, right, and center. So key things for value engineering, going to be very project specific, but hopefully you can take away some of these and use them in your own business and your developments. So first one, looking really deeply at the big ticket items. These are often windows and doors. That can often be a huge sum when it comes to your development. So shopping around, try and find a supplier that can do it for the best price. What we've done previously is bat a couple of window suppliers off, against each other, basically, utilizing their quotes to get these guys down, that quote to get these guys down, and really kind of getting into a race to who can do it for the cheapest for you. But yeah, your big ticket items are going to be large savings if you can get them right and you can reduce them. Drilling your engineer, especially on bigger schemes, more complicated schemes. If you've got an engineer that their go-to is just sticking a shitload of steel and it's all big steel and it's got loads of complicated connection details, and I don't want to work with that engineer. I want to work with an engineer that's going to turn around and say, oh, we don't need a steel for this ridge beam. We can double up a timber, or we can use a flitch plate, or whatever it may be that the solution is. Working with an engineer that thinks about how lean a scheme they can create, I think is like imperative to saving money and creating an efficient scheme and an efficient design that works for your bank balance. Another big player is huge, to be fair, on most schemes, because I'd say on average, your MEP items are probably like 25 to 35% of your total contract value. It comes back to first principles as well. When you're looking at MEP, most people just think about the systems that they're installing and don't go back to what we would do as an architecture practice, which is look at the fabric first and make sure that that is as efficient as it can be, so that your things like your heat loss is reduced as much as possible. Because if your MEP engineer is designing a scheme on a leaky building, for example, the kit that they specify is going to be massive. The systems that they want are going to be over-engineered and over-designed for the space. So you need to start on first principles to understand, get your building as efficient as it possibly can be before you then start throwing in the heating systems and designing the mechanical and electrical systems within the property. So MEP is another big item to drill down on. Another top tip is actually just to speak to contractors. Now, I've had conversations with contractors in the past where my go-to in this certain situation was to build a party wall between some flats in 9-inch block work. For me, that was like, it's simple. You just need the bricklayer on site, render over it, does my 60-minute fire compartment, does my acoustics, job done. And when speaking to that contract, he's like, no, that's actually going to cost you 25% more than just doing it in a twin track stud wall with insulation in between. Like, we would actually much prefer to do the stud work, and it's going to cost you more to do the block work. So those sorts of conversations just takes a half-minute conversation, talking through a package of drawings and what your architects have specified here or what you're planning to do there, to get some really good pointers around what they're seeing in the market, because they might see more intimately what is going on with the building supplies, how much they're costing. So speak to contractors, they will have a really good sense of what things cost, and they might be able to actually suggest things that your architect or someone else might not actually know. They've done a certain thing on another site which worked out really well, cost them less. They can put that forward to your architect, who can then check it from a technical perspective and then get it into your project if it works well.
If you got value from this video, make sure you click the subscribe button down below and ring the notification bell, because we release one video at least every week, so you'll be the first to get notified. See you on the next one.